So last week's video was all about version differences in the first generation of Pokemon. I knew that I would eventually want to make follow-ups to that video with all the later generations, but you all reacted so well to it that I started work on this video immediately. So naturally, following on from last week, we're going to take a look at all version differences in Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. Since all three games were localized in their entirety, we only need to focus on the English versions this time. We'll be comparing Pokemon Gold and Silver, and then both of them to Crystal. So let's begin. We'll start with the version-exclusive Pokemon. The Mankey, Growlithe, Spinarak, and Teddiursa lines, as well as Gligar and Mantine, are exclusive to Pokemon Gold, while the Vulpix, Meowth, Ledybird, and Phanpy lines, as well as Delibird and Skarmory, are exclusive to Pokemon Silver. Johto and its remakes are the only Pokemon games where the two legendary mascots are actually available in both games. The only differences being what stage in the game you get them at. In Silver, you can battle Lugia before the 8th gym after being given the Silver Wing, and an old man in Pewter City gives you the Rainbow Wing to battle Ho-Oh in the post-game. Whereas in Pokemon Gold, these two events are simply swapped over. They're also at different levels depending on the version. A lot of the Pokemon sprites were also different in each version. With the exception of sequels, this is a feature that hasn't been featured again since. Which is a real shame, because I think that it really helps to set a pair of games apart. Gold and Silver can be played on the SNES using the Super Game Boy add-on, and just like the Generation 1 games, they have a different border depending on the version. Pokemon Crystal can't be played on the Super Game Boy at all, because Pokemon Crystal itself can't be played on the Game Boy, whereas Gold and Silver can. But I feel like this is a good time to move on to Crystal. For the most part, the majority of differences come in here, so we'll have a lot to look at. Pokemon Crystal has Suicune as its mascot, and unsurprisingly, changes are made to the way that you find it. This time, you can't challenge Morty until you've awakened the legendary beast in Burn Tower. The other two legendary beasts will just leave, but Suicune will actually pause in front of the player before leaving. You'll see it again in Cyanwood City, before being able to capture it in the Bell Tower. The character Eugene is also introduced in Crystal, who is somewhat of a Suicune enthusiast. In this game, the legendary beasts have their own special encounter music, which was the very first time any legendary used anything other than the regular encounter theme. All three legendary beasts also received updates to their overworld sprites, so that you can actually tell them apart. Another change regarding the legendary beasts would be that you actually need to capture all three of them to gain access to Ho-Oh. Quite a few Pokemon were made unobtainable in Crystal, where they were previously available in at least one of the other Generation 2 games. These Pokemon would be the Vulpix, Mankey, Mareep, and Remoraid lines, as well as Girafarig. However, a few Pokemon are available in different areas now. I'd be here all day if I listed them all, but a few examples would be Ghastly being found on a few more routes instead of just in Sprout and Tin Tower, or Sneasel being available in Ice Path, instead of being exclusively at Mount Silver. In Crystal, there are only 3 Swarm Pokemon, as opposed to Gold and Silver's 7. But at least you can still catch my favorite Pokemon, Yanma, in all 3 of the games, so it's alright. In Crystal, you can now obtain a Dratini that knows Extreme Speed, as a gift from Claire's grandfather. Like in Generation 1, the Pokemon that you receive from the game corners differ by version. In Goldenrod's game corner, in Gold version you get Abra, Ekans, and Dratini. In Silver, Ekans is replaced by Sandshrew. And in Crystal you get Abra, Cubone, and Wobbuffet. In Celadon's game corner, in Gold and Silver you can get Eevee, Mr. Mime, and Porygon, whereas in Crystal you can get Pikachu, Porygon, and Larvitar. Some of the in-game trades were also altered from what they were in Gold and Silver. Pokemon Crystal also introduces the Odd Egg, which can be obtained from the Daycare Man. This egg will hatch into a random baby Pokemon that knows Dizzy Punch, and has a 14% chance of being shiny. As for graphics, Crystal mainly reused Pokemon sprites from either Gold or Silver, but there are some that are entirely new. An example of this would be Croconaw. Crystal was also the first game to introduce animated Pokemon sprites. Some Pokemon also received new back sprites too. Not just the sprites, but the coloring of some Pokemon was also altered. Examples would be Sneasel's regular colors changing from brown and pale green to dark blue and pink, or Spinarak being changed from a dark blue to green. A few areas were also slightly redesigned. This would include Lance's room looking a little more dragon-like, Ice Path looking more, well, icy, National Park now has a fountain, the Burn Tower actually looking burnt, and the inside of Mount Mortar was redesigned. Other areas that were changed would include Goldenrod Department Store and Dragon's Den. Text boxes identifying each area as you entered it were also introduced. This is a feature that continues to be used today. New trainers were added to areas, some were moved to different locations on the map, and some trainers had their dialogue changed from what it was in Gold and Silver. This was the first instance of trainers being able to battle you at certain times of day, as is the case with Pokefan Jamie on Route 39. Some trainers don't even approach you, and instead have to be spoken to battle them. As is the case with pretty much all sequels, a few bugs that were present in Gold and Silver were removed. Aside from bug fixes, a few existing mechanics were altered. This would include a few Pokemon having different level up movesets than in Gold and Silver. Though, all Pokemon impacted only had one move changed, with the only exception to this rule of course being Suicune. A load of new features were added too. Pokemon Crystal has the very first Battle Tower, which was added to Route 40. It also has the very first move tutor, being a man in Goldenrod City being able to teach Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, and Flamethrower. In Cyanwood City, there's a new NPC called the Pokeseer, who can tell when and where a Pokemon has been caught, and how many levels it's grown. Now bear in mind, in Generation 2 there was no information about this on the Pokemon summary screen, like there would be in later generations. The Ruins of Alph is also expanded in Crystal. Now if certain conditions are met, such as using a certain move or having a certain Pokemon in your party, you can gain access to hidden rooms behind the puzzles. These rooms all have useful items in them, so you won't want to miss it. You can also fall through a hole at the back to gain access to other hidden rooms. These hidden rooms spell out messages using unknown letters. Changes were also made to the Pokegear. Previously, when you wanted to call a trainer, they would all say the same phrase, but with different Pokemon mentioned. In Crystal, they all have distinct personalities and will talk about a variety of different topics. They'll also call for reasons other than battling, like if they found a rare item that they want to share with you or if there are any swarms. A new radio show, being Buena's Password, was also added. Occasionally, sales will take place on the newly added rooftop area of the Goldenrod department store. You can also give Kurt more than one apricorn of the same color, so get multiple of one type of special Pokeball. But that's just about it for Generation 2 version differences. Though before I end, I would really like to get some feedback on something. In the previous video, I took a brief look at some regional changes in Generation 1. Regional changes are where some parts of the game are altered from the original Japanese version when the game is localized. For example, the changing of some move animations in Generation 1, in response to the whole Electric Soldier Porygon controversy. That wasn't exactly the point of my video though, I just thought it would be interesting to mention a couple. There were actually a lot of regional changes that I didn't talk about. In these videos, I'd like to cover all version exclusive features, like version exclusive Pokemon and changes made in sequels. But I do find regional changes pretty interesting too. So how would you like me to go about it? Would you be interested in a video about regional changes in Pokemon? I would probably analyze them in a similar fashion to these videos, going one generation at a time. If it's a topic you'd like to see me cover, then please leave a comment down below and tell me. But I think that's just about it for today's video. If you haven't already seen the first video in this little series covering Generation 1, then I recommend that you check it out. But for now, that's all for now from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!